Hi there, it's Dr. Everybody. Talk about Project 6. Project 6, a bit of a step up from what we've been doing, but there should be a lot that's familiar in there. You've had 2 weeks of working with lists, and this is a project of working with lists. And you'll see a similar theme in a number of our projects where we get some data. So we open a file, we read the data out of the file, we do some computations on it, maybe select certain ones, do some averages, and then we display it. So there's that. So you'll see this pattern. Open a file, read the data, do something with it, display it. And this project fits that. And as we do many times in here, we use real data. It gets a little messy sometimes. And the idea is that whether you're a computer scientist or a natural scientist or an engineer, a lot of what you do in terms of computing is you have a file of data, you read the stuff in, you do something with it, and you present it. And we're in this case we're doing water data, but we could have been doing it with almost anything else. So let's take a look at this. Now, in terms of that pattern that I just mentioned, we have some functions where we go and we open a file, and then we read a file, and then we will extract some particular data out of that file. Then we'll compute some usage, and then we'll display it. Okay, and we'll actually display it in two ways. We'll display it as just some printed data, so we can test it on Mirror, and then we'll also test it. We'll also have some plotting there. We give you that. You just have to call the plotting function, and we will have individual tests on there for the functions. So there is a test to read the file, and it returns a list of tuples, and we give you a tiny data file to work with that only has a couple of items in it, just for you to work with. Okay, and then once we've done that, we need to extract some data, and so we take a slightly bigger file, and in this case we'll extract the data for the state of Colorado. So we have water data for the country. And then similarly we will so that's the one to extract the data, and now we take some extracted data and we do some computations on it, again reading that file again with Colorado, and now we actually have done some calculations on it. When we look at the sample that we have of the test cases, there is a driving loop. So we prompt for a file, and we enter it, and then we enter a state code or all. So there's a state code for Michigan. So this small file only has 4 counties in it, and we display it all in nice columns. And what we're looking at here is the population of the county, how many million gallons per day per person, and then how many that's the total and the gallons per person. So we describe that in the literature, in the description, some just simple calculations, and then printing out values. The next test case, again, looks familiar. We check to see whether you have some error checking. Can you input Texas? No. You have to input the symbol for the state. Print out a few counties there. Again, we're just working out of the small data file there. Pick up Puerto Rico. And again, do we want to plot it? No, because our mirror testing can't handle that. And then we quit. So there's a little bit of a loop there. You know how to do a loop. And then we get into a larger test case where we say, okay, we're still doing the small one, but we want to print out all of them. And there you go. There's a lot there. And then we finally grab the full data set, ask for one state out of the full data set, and again, we get a lot of information out of there. And then at some point we will check for plotting, and we give you the function that does this. You just have to get the data set up right to do that. So that's the outline of what's going on. We do give you sample code, which has each of the functions in it. Open a file, read a file, extract some data, do some computation, and then display it. All the stuff that I just mentioned. We do give you a function that plots it. That entire function is given there. You don't have to do anything to it except set it up. And then we have a main and the call to the main. So how do I start this? Well, one thing when I'm doing developing, I like to not have the main, and I'll show you why in a moment. I can stick all that back later on. And what's the first thing that we have to do is we have to open a file, and in my first function we are opening the tiny data file. So in my open file, you have a file, you have an open file someplace already. You can just copy that over. For right now, I'm simply going to open the file that I'm testing, and then I'm going to call that file down where my main would be. So let's do it here. I'm going to get fp equals open file. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to read the file. So a familiar pattern here is that I open a file, I get a file pointer, and I take that and I send that into reading the file. And then out of that, I get some information. We're dealing with lists here, so that will be a list of data. So let's go look. So I have a trivial open file. So let's now work on reading a file. And what I do is, first thing I do is just say for line in my file, print it. And with this simple thing, I will run it. And what comes out of this? Well, we see a whole bunch of junk here, and then we have the information out of one county, and then we have the information out of the other county. So that's all there is in the file. Well, for the moment, I think I don't want that header file, so let's grab the header. And let's run that. Okay, so now I just have my county information. What columns am I interested in here? These are comma separated values. There's a comma between each one. So at some point then, guess what? I know that I'm going to make a line list, and I'm going to take each line. I'll strip stuff off, carriage returns and stuff like that, and then I'll split. What will I split on? Well, if I look at my data file here, everything's separated by commas. All right, so let's split using a comma character. And again, let's print that. And there we go. There's all my data in a list, and we don't want all of it. We only want part of it. Notice, let me scroll down here. You see I have the data list there. I can just print that. Oh, nothing there. Oh, that's because I didn't return my data list. So I need to return the data list here. And there's nothing in there, but I'm guessing if I have a list, I'm going to have, start with it empty and then start appending stuff on there. All right. Something on there. So we've talked about patterns before. Here's a pattern that we have. We start out with an empty list. We're going to loop through the file. We're going to keep appending onto there, and then I'm going to return it. What data do I collect? Well, guess what? I was really nice to you this time. And almost, you can just do a copy and paste here. You know, what do I need? Well, that's what I need. Now it actually doesn't work out so nicely, you know. Oh yeah, there's that junk on there, and we got to, you know, there's a few things in there, and look at this. I also said we're going to have a list of tuples, so I actually gave you the tuple. There it is, and then I said, oh yeah, look at that. I'm going to take my data list and I'm going to append tuples on there. Well, wasn't I in a good mood when I did that? I gave you all this good stuff, so we can take that and I can copy and paste that in here too. It probably goes somewhere around here. Now a lot has to be lined up, and there's things in here that you know, you can't use this quite exactly. You know, look at that. There's all these spaces in there, and the wording doesn't quite match up. But with a little bit of thought, you will, you know, you'll be able to put that all together. One thing you might want to watch out for is this line right here. Just to give you a little bit of work, notice it says that convert the population, which is in thousands, to its actual value. So you're going to have to figure out where the population is and multiply it by 1,000. Oh boy, that's, you know, you can handle that. But there, what we've done here is I have actually now constructed the reading of the file. And once I read that file, I can come down here and I get this data list that's returned, and I want to find out what I have. I can just print my data list. And what I've done is I've taken, so now we read some file, we read that information in. What's the next thing that we do? Well, the next thing that we have to do is take this other function, and we're going to extract the data out of it. And it's going to take a list of tuples. That's my data list that I have right there, and a state, and we're going to extract out all the tuples that have that state in it. So what does that mean? Well, I'm going to walk through the list, and if the state is in there, then I'm going to create a list. So I'm going to have a list of tuples. Look at that. So now I have a new list of tuples. Again, the patterns start with an empty one, loop through, keep appending them on, and that's what I will return. To give you a little bit of an idea, what I've done is I have created the read file here. And the test that we have uses this water data small, and it will use the state of Colorado. But to start with, we're using the water data that's small. When I run this, I get the data, and each one has a state, county name, and some data on there. There's a tuple, there's another tuple, and so on. But notice how each one of these starts with a state, and I've gone through. Here's some Michigan counties, and there's a Virginia one, or maybe that's actually that's Virgin Islands, not Virginia. So I've done what I've hidden from you here is the fact that I've already done the work. I have the proper open file, and I've read the file, and I'm printing out the data. Now I want to write a function that is going to extract the data. So let's so we can see what that is. I'll call it my extracted data, and we have this extract data function, and it takes 2 arguments. Let's see, oops, let's scroll up here. Where is it? There it is. It takes my data list, and it takes a state. Well, in this case, let's see how we're doing. Let's grab everything out of Colorado. And now I can go to my extract data function here, and what does it get? Well, it gets a I have a list of tuples in the data list, and for right now, let's just print all the tuples and make sure that this thing is working. There we go, printed out the tuples. That's nice. And then you can start thinking about, all right, so what do I want to do? Well, I need to have. Let me create a little room here. Is what do I want to do? Well, if the something to do with the state, then I'm going to collect the information for that state. So I need some kind of a list up here that's empty, and then I need to be appending onto that list something, and then I need to return that list. Now, of course, I don't want you using L. You should have a better name, but there is an idea of how I will structure this function. I will start with an empty list, and if the state information is there, then I will append that onto my list, and then I will return it. And we'll do something similar with the computing of usage. When I deal with this function, it's going to take a state list and do some computations on that. And again, we return a list of tuples, one tuple for each county in the state. And what does that in fact look like? Well, after I compute the usage for the small data and the state of Colorado, each county that I have there, and my small one only has 3 counties, we calculate 3 items of data for it. And again, that list gets returned by that function. And gradually you can build this up into a complete project. A lot of little steps there. This project description is quite long. Later on, when we give you a small project description, you'll find that you were wishing that you had a long one. So long ones would give you a lot of information to help you get going. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a start on this. Good luck.